Every year, over 12 million people set foot on the Appalachian Trail, and most of them are worried about the wrong things. They pack for blisters, sudden rain, maybe a bear sighting if they're feeling adventurous. What almost none of them plan for is the animal that actually sends the most people home hurt. And it isn't the one with fangs or claws. It's something small enough to miss entirely, and something else that most hikers wouldn't think to call an animal threat at all. Before you plan a trip into these mountains, it's worth understanding which animals are actually dangerous, which ones just look that way, and why the real risk in Appalachia has almost nothing to do with what shows up in the campfire stories. Start with the animal everyone actually fears the moment they step off the trailhead: snakes. The Appalachians host several venomous species, but the copperhead is the one you're most likely to actually encounter. Its camouflage is so effective against dead leaves and forest floor that hikers routinely step within inches of one without noticing, and it accounts for a significant share of snakebite hospital visits across the region every year. The timber rattlesnake is larger and carries a more potent bite, but it's also far less likely to strike without warning, usually rattling well before defending itself. Further south, near the lowland edges where Appalachian terrain gives way to wetland, the eastern cottonmouth adds a third venomous species to the mix, along with its frequently misidentified look-alike, the non-venomous northern water snake, which gets killed by frightened hikers far more often than it deserves. A smaller, more elusive relative, the eastern Massasauga, survives in isolated wetland pockets through the northern stretches of the range. It's rarely encountered, and its shy, retiring temperament means most people who live near one never know it's there. Then there's the animal that actually shapes how people behave in these mountains more than any snake does: the black bear. The Appalachians, particularly through the Great Smoky Mountains, hold one of the densest black bear populations in North America. Genuine attacks are rare. What's not rare is bears that have become comfortable around unsecured food and campsites. And a defensive mother protecting cubs is a real and serious threat if a hiker gets between them. Coyotes round out the mid-sized predator picture, generally shy around people, but increasingly bold in high-traffic areas, mostly a danger to unleashed pets rather than to hikers themselves. There's a stranger entry in this category too, one that officially shouldn't exist here at all. Wildlife agencies consider the mountain lion extirpated from the eastern United States, wiped out over a century ago by the same hide and bounty pressure that nearly ended the wood bison in Canada. And yet, sightings keep surfacing every year from hunters and hikers across the region, persistent enough that some state agencies still field and log the reports, even while maintaining there's no confirmed breeding population. A handful of individual cats have been confirmed elsewhere in the eastern half of the country in recent decades, almost always traced by DNA back to dispersing males from established Western populations. Animals capable of traveling well over 1,000 miles in search of new territory. Whether any of those wandering cats have made it into the Appalachian Range itself, or whether the sightings here trace back to something else entirely, remains genuinely unresolved. Nobody can say with certainty whether these reports represent a handful of dispersing Western cats, an undetected remnant population, or simply repeated misidentification of bobcats and coyotes in low light. It's one of the few unresolved mysteries left in Eastern wildlife biology, and it's exactly why it belongs in this conversation with an asterisk rather than a confirmed warning. Insects are where this list starts working against expectations. Bald-faced hornets build large paper nests low in trailside branches, and unlike bees, they can sting repeatedly, sending a hiker who brushes too close into a defensive swarm within seconds. Eastern yellowjackets nest in the ground itself, easily disturbed by a misplaced step, and for the small percentage of people with severe allergies, a single sting can escalate into anaphylaxis far from the nearest hospital. Spiders add their own quieter risk. Black widows hide in old woodpiles and stone walls throughout the southern range, delivering a neurotoxic bite that causes intense cramping, while brown recluses, more common along the western fringe of Appalachian territory, can cause necrotic skin wounds that go unnoticed until they've already started to worsen. Then there are the two insects almost nobody packs repellent for, mostly because they're too small to think about until the damage is already done. Black flies swarm in thick clouds near streams and shaded trail sections through the spring and early summer, And while a single bite is minor, a swarm can leave a hiker with dozens of itchy, slow-healing welts within minutes. Chiggers are worse in a different way. These nearly microscopic mite larvae latch onto skin in tall grass and brush, inject a digestive enzyme, and leave behind an intense, maddening itch that can last more than a week, all from a bite so small that most people never even feel it happen. Freshwater residents get overlooked entirely by most hikers, but they're worth knowing too. Snapping turtles in the slow rivers and ponds threading through these mountains have a genuinely powerful bite, dangerous mainly to anyone who tries to handle or steps too close to one. American mink, small and aggressive around riverbanks, will bite hard if they feel cornered near a den. And in recent decades, wildlife researchers have documented American alligators pushing further into the southernmost lowland watersheds at the edge of Appalachian terrain, a small but real signal that even a well-mapped ecosystem like this one isn't static. Then there's raccoons and feral hogs, two animals that couldn't be more different but share the same underlying danger. Raccoons are common, nocturnal, and one of the primary rabies vectors in the eastern United States, meaning the real risk isn't an unprovoked attack, but an unwanted close encounter with an animal that looks unusually tame or disoriented. Feral hogs, not native to the region but increasingly established across the southern Appalachians, travel in aggressive groups and can weigh well over 200 pounds, and hikers and hunters have been injured after stumbling into a sounder without warning. And now the two animals that actually cause the most documented harm in these mountains, and neither of them is what anyone pictures when they imagine Appalachian wildlife danger. The black-legged tick, barely visible against skin or clothing, is the primary vector for Lyme disease throughout the entire Appalachian corridor. The CDC has tracked steadily climbing case numbers across Appalachian states for over a decade now, and researchers point to a combination of causes behind the rise. A warming climate that's expanding tick range and extending their active season further into the year, suburban development pushing deeper into wooded tick habitat, and a rebounding deer population that gives the tick's preferred host more places to thrive. Left untreated, Lyme disease can progress from a mild rash and flu-like symptoms into joint pain, neurological complications, and, in a small number of cases, long-term chronic illness, which is why health officials in the region increasingly recommend a full-body tick check after every hike, not just the ones that feel adventurous. Mosquitoes add another layer, capable of carrying West Nile virus, and, in the southern stretches of the range, rare but serious cases of eastern equine encephalitis. Between the two of them, insects transmit more disease to hikers in this region every single year than every venomous snake on this list combined. But even that isn't the animal doing the most damage. That distinction belongs to the white-tailed deer, an animal nobody thinks to be afraid of at all. Deer vehicle collisions on the roads winding through Appalachian counties cause thousands of injuries and a meaningful number of fatalities every year, a toll that dwarfs the combined harm from every bear encounter, snake bite, and insect sting in the entire region. It's not a predator, it's not venomous. It's just an animal that steps into a dark road at the wrong moment, over and over, more often than anything else in these mountains hurts a person. Step back and look at the whole picture, and it runs almost exactly backward from what most visitors expect walking in. The animals hikers fear most, the bears, the rattlesnakes, the rumored mountain lion, cause a small fraction of the Appalachians' actual wildlife-related harm. The real risk comes from what people don't think to watch for: a tick riding on a blade of grass, a mosquito drifting through camp at dusk, a deer stepping into headlights on the drive home. None of it makes for a dramatic trail story. All of it is what the data actually shows. That's usually how risk works in the wild. The animal built to look dangerous rarely is the one that gets you. The one nobody's watching for usually is. So the next time you're lacing up boots for a trip into these mountains, worry a little less about what's coiled under the next log, and a little more about checking for ticks at the end of the day, and about the road home once the sun goes down. If you've had a close call with any animal in these mountains, tell me about it in the comments, and subscribe, because there are more ranges like this one and more dangerous residents still to cover.